Hello everybody. So the down days continue for digital asset treasury companies, and it is mostly explained by Bitcoin's weakness. Yesterday dropping to like 102.5, perhaps even less than that. And of course, the rest of crypto follows. The rest of crypto drops. A lot of people are very fearful. The liquidity has been removed from the market because the government hasn't spent the trillion that they were supposed to hand out and spend in October, and so everybody is starved from cash. There's no cash. These companies have dumped too far, in my opinion, much too far. It's a crash. Do you like blood in the street? Are you the type of person who goes to buy when there is blood in these streets? So let's go ahead I see deep value everywhere in the field. Deep value everywhere. Like strategy right now is technically, depending on how you calculate it, if you look at basic mNAV, it's technically a 1 right now. In the way they calculate it, assuming equitization of all of the converts, you're at a 1.23 mNAV right now. Per strategytracker.com, they have their own sauce for calculating it. 1.12. So either way you calculate it, it's the lowest it's ever been, yet the company is firing on all cylinders under the hood. By the way, I know it makes people mad when I say that, but yesterday Bitcoin was down 3%, same market hours with the IBTTF. Strategy was down only 3%. So technically, yesterday Strategy sort of outperformed, which is crazy to say, but people, we need to realize that Bitcoin is at 103. Nobody saw, I didn't make predictions for Bitcoin, but a lot of very well-known pundits with sometimes millions of followers were expecting us to be in the 150 range by now, right? Or close to that. And so Bitcoin just doesn't behave on your timeline. Bitcoin has its own agenda. The liquidity has hurt Bitcoin and these companies much more. But for strategy, it's especially annoying for strategy because under the hood, they are doing incredible. Of course, the stream launch, so the European 100 euro at par launch that happened last week, they raised 715 million. That money should hit Sailor's account on Thursday. So on Thursday, you're going to have a Sailor buying maybe 7,000 Bitcoin, draining the OTC desks. So that's point number one. And then Stretch, I could not believe my eyes yesterday. It was just so beautiful yesterday. Stretch behaved exactly like a stable coin. Every time it was reaching 100.01 cent, he ATM'd, and you can see the chart flat, and every time he had to ATM to bring the stock down. So who knows how much money he raised? Is that what is that? Is that $10 million worth of ATM? Perhaps, I don't know. We'll know. We'll need to calculate. But every spike that I see, it wouldn't let it go past 100. Never goes past 100. You ATM. If it's 101 cents, you ATM. And we know that because if you look at the pre-market and the post-market, after market close, when there is no ATM possible because the market is closed, we saw the price of Stretch actually spike from after-market demand. So it's like 113. During the trading day, he would never ever let it go at 113. So even this, I think this could create some very, very interesting strategies where a lot of people, I don't know, like what if, for example, you were to short the stock in after hours, for example, and then just buy it back after. So there could be very interesting strategies that are done on this instrument. This is financial innovation at its best. It's never been done before. I'm very curious to see how this goes and some of the financial innovation that could be built on Stretch. Stretch was the iPhone moment for strategy. I was very satisfied with how much he bought last week with Stretch. I expect to be even more satisfied next week when we know what's going on. And now, I don't have anything too specific to say about the other DATs, except I want to show you the price to NAV and how cheap they got. So let's get started and let's talk about Mara. So Mara is one of these quote-unquote free companies. So with Mara, you get access to nearly 3 gigawatts of power. They invested a bunch of money in all these power assets. They're pivoting to inference AI, which is not quite GPU type AI, but the stock is trading below mNAV. Like the stock is trading at 0.94. So Mara is yet again a quote-unquote free company. I listened to the entire conference call of Mara. I thought the CEO did not particularly do the best job. He was very vague in how Mara is managed. Mara doesn't have a clear image to the market yet. People are confused on how to value Mara. But as the CEO said, it's their strategy to not say what they're going to do. So it doesn't really matter to me. All of the assets that they own, all of the power assets that they own, the land, the electricity production, all of that sort of stuff is much, much, much more valuable than what the market is telling us right now. And so this stock, you get the company for free, is the way I look at it. And so it's a matter of waiting for the market to be the weighing machine that it has always been. And Mara is selling off harder than a lot of the stocks because Mara had ran to past $20 because it was supposed to be this AI stock, and now the market just runs it back down. The market has been entirely ruthless with these stocks. Let's talk about another quote-unquote free stock, which is KULR. KULR is trading at the same level that it was trading before they announced a Bitcoin treasury strategy. So the difference between KULR from a year ago and this year is more than $100 million worth of Bitcoin. Yeah, 105 million worth of Bitcoin. That's the difference between KULR today and KULR last year. So essentially, KULR became free. The underlying business became free, and this is a very hot business. We're talking about space batteries. They have batteries on the moon. They have batteries on Mars. We're talking about anti-vibration system for military. We're talking about testing solutions for NASA. This is an actual business under the hood. This is not just a treasury company. This is just a company that put its cash into Bitcoin. So I have a very hard time understanding why KULR is free right now, but it is free right now. And moving on to other stocks. So Empery is a stock I noticed on btctreasuries.com, right? You know, these screenshots come from btctreasuries.com. I was trying to find, okay, well, is there a cheap BTC treasury company that is heavily undervalued, that is on Robinhood with a low maintenance ratio? Well, Empery is one of those. And if you look, they're trading at 59% of the value on their balance sheet. Empery, they were importing golf carts from Vietnam. The business wasn't doing well. They stopped doing the business. They took their cash and they put the cash into Bitcoin to survive. Like this is the same move that Semler did back in the day, right? It's like you have a company, the underlying business not doing well. You have a bunch of cash. What do you do with your cash? You put it into Bitcoin, and that's what Saylor did also back in the day. Like how much lower could we go than a 40% discount? If GBTC is any indication, GBTC never traded more than, say, a 45% Bitcoin, and that was at like the bottom of the bear. So to me, this is as bottomy as it looks, and when excitement comes back to Bitcoin, which it inevitably will, I mean, it's got through excitement periods and winter periods. It's done that for more than a decade. When it does, these are the stocks that I want to own when it does. Of course, I'm way too big on strategy. Strategy is my main stock, but still, Metaplanet, another stock that I own. Metaplanet, I'm in the red. A lot of us are in the red now on Metaplanet. You would have had to be very early to not be in the red on Metaplanet. Metaplanet was at such a precipitous fall. Now you are at a 0.95. Now you are at a 0.95. It's come to a point where Metaplanet is doing a buyback. They're literally doing a buyback right now. And of course, another thing that gets interesting as towards the end of a year, and this is something I might do, something for us to think about, is if you have a loss on any of these stocks, I'm thinking, for example, of NACA holders, if you have a loss, it may make sense to just swap, say, from NACA to Metaplanet. If you invested in NACA and you have a loss, and you take that loss, and then you change the stock and you go into Metaplanet. So you go into a different company, different everything, but same underlying issue, which is the DAT crash, right? And you can benefit from it on the way back up. So that's something potentially could do, because all these companies have different underlying business. They're different companies, right? So anyways, that's very interesting. Moving on, Upexi. So now I'm going to talk briefly about some of the ETH treasury companies and Solana treasury companies. Okay, there's 3 big crypto, like serious ones out there, right? It's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. These are the 3 main ones, right? Ethereum and Solana, they are the world's Web3 computer. They're the world's blockchain, where, of course, right now, alternatives to banks are being built right now, alternatives to all sorts of payment rates, alternatives to stock exchanges are being built on these platforms right now. But eventually, in my view, I mean, at least on Solana, ETH is a little expensive with the gas fees and all, but at least on Solana, eventually, in my view, you'll have a Solana version of WhatsApp built on Solana. You'll have a version of YouTube built on Solana. A lot of the Web2 apps that we use and love right now could technically be built on Web3 on these nodes and these networks, these public networks. And of course, if you want to build anything, you need Sol, right? You need Sol. If you want to build anything on the Solana network, you need Sol. It's the native token whereby transactions are paid, by way of which transactions are paid. So Sol represents ownership into the network, right? Into this HTTP network you can buy. So anyways, Sol, many of us, find it undervalued, but it's dumped more than Bitcoin. Of course, it's dumped way more than Bitcoin. It's more volatile than Bitcoin. ETH has dropped tremendously. The alternative crypto have not been doing well, but it's gotten yet again to a ridiculous level where it's 0.58. It's a 0.58 mNAV. So again, a 40% discount. But the big difference, and you could argue, if you look at a company like Empery, you could argue they're done. They're never going to be able to raise more money because they're not trading at a premium to mNAV. They're trading at a discount. So now, if they were to issue new shares, it would be dilutive, right? Same for Metaplanet. That's why Metaplanet does a buyback, right? And I'm talking about common ATM. A company like Upexi or DeFi Dev doesn't have that issue because they are staking, right? They are pledging their soul to these nodes, right? To these staking nodes, and they're earning a yield for securing the network and for running the network, right? That's called a staking yield, right? That's the innovation of proof of stake versus proof of work. They move to proof of stake, right? And so they earn 78% yield on their discounted bag. So not only is it a discounted bag, but then they earn a yield. And so that's why when they reported earnings yesterday, the stock popped. By the way, that was the proper reaction, in my view, and then it dropped right back down. It's as if these companies can't catch a bid. There is no liquidity. So yeah, if you have options on this, it's tough luck. If you own the equity and you have a very long-term horizon, I am bullish, right? If it's equity on long-term horizon, if it's a leverage play, or if it's a short term and you have options at the end of the year, because a lot of people were saying 200,000, and yeah, then that's very tough luck, Anyways, DeFi Development Corp, same thing, not as cheap as Upexi, but still pretty cheap as 0.74. And DeFi Development Corp, I have him on the record listening to some of the calls. They earn nearly 10% yield on their staked ETH, so you get a 0.74, so you get a 26% discount roughly, and 10% on that bag. So it's compounds, right? It's pretty astounding that these companies are so cheap. And of course, a lot of people, especially Wall Street, I suppose, love Ethereum very much. And Ethereum is fine. Ethereum is very important for stable coins. A lot of stable coins are being built on Ethereum. That's fine. Ethereum is the older, the older multifunction blockchain, if you will, right? And that's fine. And maybe the updates will work, and maybe they won't. Anyways, I'm not as big of a fan of Ethereum versus Solana. I prefer Solana, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, it's cheap too. Ethereum, like if you look at Sharplink Gaming, that's SBET, ticker symbol SBET. You're trading at a 0.8, fully diluted, so they essentially have no conversion or nothing. 0.83. So again, clear discount on ETH versus buying spot ETH. And you have BMNR, Bitmine. Everybody's asking me about Bitmine. Bitmine has a teeny tiny bit of Bitcoin, but they have mostly Ethereum, and they're trading still at a premium of 19%. So it's a premium comparable to Strategy's premium. I guess Tom Lee found a way to earn a premium similar to Michael Saylor's premium. So good for Tom Lee, but that's a big delta between these two. And considering that Sharplink Gaming founder is one of the co-founders of Ethereum who founded that company, it's to me. I mean, clearly it's been the underperformer, and clearly the BMNR has been the better performer. But they've both dumped, and just the market is just not wanting anything to do with these companies right now. I love so many of them. Of course, Strategy is Strategy is my favorite, of course. So anyways, don't be depressed out there. This too shall pass is what I'll conclude with. This too shall pass. This was not investment advice. Definitely not investment advice ever. This is just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.